Greetings, fellow gamers! I'm the Soulsborne Seeker, and today I'll be reviewing Twilight Monk, a fantasy Metroidvania game with strong RPG elements, developed by Aquatic Moon Games and released on the 26th of March 2025 for PC and Nintendo Switch. The story of Twilight Monk is based on the series of books of the same name and follows Raziel, a young monk living in the Monastery of Crescent Island, a place that is part of the land of Speria. Soon the realm finds itself threatened by total eradication after Nox, a traitor among the ranks of the monks, escapes captivity and vows to release a creature known as the World Eater from its prison. To do that, Nox will need to find 3 rings which, once gathered, will release the monstrous entity and spell the end of Speria. Thus, Raziel goes on a quest against time to find the rings first and keep his world from dying. Narrative progression transpires mainly through dialogue, which does a great job of properly informing you about the lore of Speria as well as the stakes of your current predicament, while also breathing life into the various wonderfully portrayed characters you'll come across, each one phenomenally unique in terms of visual design but also personality. While the plot is somewhat predictable to an extent, it still manages to give off an air of excitement and sense of adventure as you travel across the map and visit new and strange places, which is where the game's storytelling truly shines, namely world building. Aside from my previous praise for its characters, I cannot begin to describe how beautiful and diverse the locations I got to traverse were, with Twilight Monk's phenomenal art style giving each biome a distinct identity by drenching them in wonderful details that tell stories of their own. From the warm coziness of the starting village to the crystalline magnificence of Arcturo, all the way to the foreboding malice of the catacombs beneath Rottingburg, every place I got to visit felt unique and ripe for exploration, with each nook and cranny seemingly holding eons of history hidden within. Speaking of exploration, the way Twilight Monk has you move about its world is interestingly novel, since it borrows elements from classic JRPGs. More specifically, the game has an overview map which you use to move around in isometric fashion, similar to RPGs like Final Fantasy VII, and through which you get to visit various places of interest, at which point the game turns to the classic side-scrolling Metroidvania view. Said isometric perspective can also extend to some more specialized areas than the overview map, such as your starting village. Now, while in this isometric view during map traversal, you will occasionally see foes appear and come your way, and if they reach you, they'll pull you into a small arena where you'll get to either fight them or flee, which is another element borrowed from classic JRPGs. At the beginning, I thought this mechanic might be a bit detrimental to momentum, but that fear quickly dissipated once I realized that you can easily avoid these creatures if you don't want to fight, either by making use of a talisman that slows them down or simply running away preemptively, and also discovered that sometimes being reached by them might lead you to treasure instead of a fight, thus introducing a welcome element of unpredictability into the mix. However, as I said, once you get to a point of interest, the game brings you to familiar Metroidvania territory, exploration, ability gates, combat, and the like. Staying a bit more on exploration, this was definitely another great aspect of Twilight Monk, given that its world is packed with various secrets to discover, including a total of 9 different types of collectibles, namely spirit fragments, ember stones, mystic arts, talismans, summons, potions, bojo birds, pineys, and spider gems. Spirit fragments increase your overall health when gathered in groups of 3, while each ember stone collected raises your ember energy pool by 10 points. Mystic arts are special attacks you can equip, which can then be utilized at the cost of ember energy in order to take down enemies in various ways. Talismans correspond to trinkets you can equip in order to gain certain advantages, such as a longer range of attack or the ability to run faster, of which you can have up to 7 equipped at any given moment, though only 1 slot is available at the start of the game and the rest need to be unlocked. Summons are special entities that offer support once equipped, like a floating sword that automatically attacks enemies or a floating eye that detects secrets. Potions are purchased from merchants and allow you to cheat death by being consumed upon defeat, with the amount of health replenished depending on the quality of the potion purchased. Bojo birds are adorable avian creatures of various colors that you need to find and send back to their nest, and once you save them all, you are given a reward for your help. Pineys are the game's currency and utilized to purchase a variety of items from the merchants populating Speria. Finally, spider gems are blue precious stones you obtain by destroying certain spiders that hide across the map, which can then be used to gain entry to an old tree and the secret waiting within. I should also mention that the game has a monster hunting system available, where you essentially need to kill certain numbers of enemies and then turn in any completed hunts to an NPC for various rewards, including extra talisman slots. With all of the aforementioned optional content to find, it is a good thing that Twilight Monk features a serviceable fast travel system system in the form of magical gates you can use to travel between biomes, so there's that as well. If there's one sour note to point in relation to the game's exploratory aspect, that would definitely be the map overview. More specifically, the map of each biome feels somewhat lacking in terms of the information it provides. First and foremost, it doesn't show you any collectibles you may have come across, but instead gives you an overall estimate of how many of them remain on that specific biome, which is definitely something, but still doesn't really help with knowing the location of each one. This becomes even more problematic by the fact that you cannot place manual markers on the map. Finally, the map doesn't show you the exact location of yourself on it, but rather highlights the room you're currently in, which might not sound like a big deal, but can turn a bit confusing in situations where a room is larger than average. The map does pinpoint save locations, boss rooms, fast travel points, and merchants, and you can also find or purchase maps from sellers which reveal unexplored rooms on each biome, so there is some information present here, but I do believe the aforementioned issues should be addressed to elevate its functionality. That being said, I can't say I struggled significantly to gather everything, since the map fragments that reveal unexplored rooms along with the summon that warns you of secrets were enough for me to go for 100% with only minor frustrations. When it comes to platforming, while Twilight Monk starts simple, it does eventually offer some interesting acrobatic instances as you gain more traversal abilities, especially once you get the wall latch and chain swing skills, the latter of which did require a bit of getting used to on my part, though I figured its timing out fairly quickly. There's nothing here that will put your reflexes to the absolute test, but you will get to experience some exciting segments, including certain areas that pay homage to some of the classic platformers of the 90s, which was a pleasantly nostalgic surprise. In terms of combat, Twilight Monk is solid, though it doesn't go the extra mile or do anything new. Your basic attacks are performed by using the large pillar strapped across your back, which you throw at enemies to cause damage in semi-ranged fashion. Said pillar can also be planted on the ground and kicked at your foes if you equip a certain talisman, as well as utilized to press buttons or reach higher ground in said form when it comes to non-battle capabilities. Using the pillar to attack was definitely satisfying, though I would have liked to be able to hit vertically as well, since quite a few enemies were flying and I had to bring myself to their level to hit them, which did break momentum a bit. Setting the pillar on the ground doesn't leave you defenseless, since in those situations, Raziel can kick his enemies to submission. In addition, the pillar becomes progressively more powerful as you level up, which happens by gaining experience through combat and was another RPG element of Twilight Monk that I really liked. Pillar aside, you will also get to use the aforementioned mystic arts that allow you to unleash special attacks such as throwing magic-infused daggers and axes at your enemies at the expense of ember energy, which I'll admit I ended up using more frequently than I thought, since they compensated for the lack of vertical attacks but also felt quite fun to perform. Boss-wise, I thoroughly enjoyed my fights against the big bads I clashed against in Twilight Monk. Their presentation was amazing, courtesy of the game's phenomenal art style, and their attack patterns were diverse, though I'll admit that overall, I did find them to be leaning toward the easier side of things. I guess the best way to describe this is that I felt the bosses were kind of like glass cannons, meaning that they did considerable damage and most of their attacks needed good reflexes to be avoided, but they also lost health quite quickly, making my bouts with them short but hectic. I would have definitely liked for the villains here to pose more of a challenge, especially since the use of potions can make some of these fights trivial, though a few of them did beat me a couple of times until I fully figured them out. As for difficulty, I'd situate Twilight Monk on the normal side of things, offering a reasonable challenge while still being manageable, with most of the struggle coming from some of the more complex areas that featured strong enemies and tricky pitfalls, as well as a few of the bosses. One thing to bear in mind is that the game unlocks a harder difficulty once you complete it on normal, though I didn't try it out so I cannot speak on it. In terms of length, it took me 10 hours and 40 minutes to finish Twilight Monk with a 100% completion rate, including every single hunt. For a price of about $20, Twilight Monk provides great value for money, making it a worthwhile purchase. Before I conclude, I do wish to mention that there seems to be a bug with the achievement for completing all hunts, since I managed to finish all 86 of them, yet it did not pop, but I think a small patch should fix that. In conclusion, I had a ton of fun playing Twilight Monk. I found the story to be straightforward but teeming with a sense of adventure. I thought the visuals were sublime, combat was fun and to the point, exploration was engaging, the RPG traversal was appropriately nostalgic, and the bosses were quite entertaining. I would have liked to be able to hit vertically and not just horizontally. The map does need a few quality of life improvements to be considered spot on, and the bosses could be tweaked a bit to provide more of a challenge, but overall, all, this was an incredibly enjoyable experience. Twilight Monk is a wonderful gem of a game, effectively bringing together Metroidvania combat and exploration with classic JRPG sensibilities to create a whole that is way more than the sum of its parts. My final verdict on Twilight Monk is 8.8 out of 10. What are your thoughts on Twilight Monk? Have you played it yet? Do you agree with the points I mentioned, or do you see things differently? Let me know in the comments below, and please subscribe if you enjoyed this video. As always, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, Soulsborne Seeker out!